I promise to pay with my life. The words came out of the cracked Ramon lips kneeling on the cold floor of the market in front of the impeccable man. His dirty hands shake while holding a raw dollar note, everything he had in the world. Please, sir, just a liter of milk for my daughter. The silence that was formed around was almost palpable. Customers stopped pushing carts, boxes interrupted their scan, and even the fluorescent light seemed to shine more intensely on that devastating scene in the supermarket dairy corridor in Manila. Ramon Cordova, 34, never imagined that he would reach this point. 3 months ago, it was just another construction worker trying to support the family with dignity. Now, with her 5-year-old daughter fighting severe home pneumonia, with no money for medicines and his wife working triple shifts in a distant factory just to pay back rent, he was there, his knees, begging for a stranger for something as basic as milk. The man in front of him was Alexander Chen, CEO of Chen Industries, one of the largest pharmaceutical corporations in Asia. His Swiss watch was worth more than 3 years of Ramon's salary. He had stopped on the market just to buy imported water while waiting for his private driver who was parking Mercedes in the exclusive span. "Get up," said Alexander, his cold and measured voice as a scalpel. The supermarket security guards were already approaching with decided steps. "You are causing an embarrassing scene." "My daughter, sir," Ramon insisted, tears down his face marked by the sun and the heavy work. "She hasn't eaten for 2 days. The doctor said she needs urgent nutrition or pneumonia will get worse. Just a liter. I promise I'm going to work for the Lord for free how many days are necessary. I can carry weight, clean, anything." A woman in the next corridor began to record with her cell phone. Other people murmured, some with genuine compassion in their eyes, some with the typical discomfort of those who prefer not to witness the suffering of others. Alexander looked at that man destroyed at his feet. For a short moment something went through his eyes, perhaps a flash of distant memory, perhaps recognition of a shared humanity that would rather ignore. But then his phone rang, displaying meeting board, 15 minutes on the bright screen. "Security," he called, signaling with disdain to uniformed men. "Remove this man immediately. He is disturbing customers and damaging the image of the establishment." Ramon felt firm hands lifting his arms with unnecessary force. The wrinkled dollar fell to the cold floor, forgotten as his dignity. "Please," his voice broke into despair. "It's just milk. My little Sophia is waiting at home. She ordered milk before bed yesterday and I promised. I should have thought of it before making bad choices in life." Alexander responded with coldness calculated, keeping his cell phone and taking his premium water imported from the shelf. "It cost $18. It's not my problem that you can't provide for your family. Maybe you should have studied more, worked harder." The cameras of cell phones multiplied as silent witnesses. At least 5 people now recorded the scene, some with shock expressions, others already typing indignant subtitles for their social networks. A younger security hesitated for a second. "Mr. Chen, maybe we can just do your job," Alexander cut with absolute authority, "or look for another job tomorrow." But while dragged out under the horrified eyes of dozens of witnesses, Ramon no longer cried. His eyes, fixed on Alexander Chen's impeccable figure, moving away with his expensive water, revealed something different. It was not defeat. It was not a shame. It was a silent and ardent determination that only exists in those who have already lost everything and, paradoxically, has nothing more to lose. What no one there knew, neither Alexander with all his polished arrogance, nor the security with his borrowed brute force, nor the spectators with their cameras ready to viral out another sad and forgettable story, it was that Ramon Cordova was not just another desperate beggar on the streets of Manila. 3 years earlier, he had been a civil engineer graduated from honors from the University of Filipinos, working on high-level government infrastructure projects. Its fall was not gradual. It was not for addictions or laziness. It was quick, brutal, and carefully orchestrated by people who feared what he had discovered. And during these 3 years on the streets, while everyone thought he had given up everything, Ramon watched, learned about the city's invisible underworld, and above all he remembered each name, each face, each color connection, Rupta who had discovered before losing everything. That casual meeting in the supermarket, it was not casual. Alexander Chen be exactly in that corridor at that specific time on Thursday? It was no coincidence. And those cameras recording every second of public humiliation? Well, let's just say that Ramon had learned a lot about the power of public opinion and viralization on social networks during his invisible time on the streets. When you are treated as a ghost by society, you quickly learn how ghosts can see everything without being noticed. As the security guards pushed him out under the horrified eyes of dozens of witnesses, Ramon allowed a microscopic smile that no one could see. The first movement had been executed with surgical perfection. Alexander Chen had just made the most expensive and public error of his privileged life, and would still take a few hours to start realizing the size of the storm he had triggered, because while that arrogant billionaire enjoyed her imported water in her Mercedes with air conditioning, those videos were already starting to spread through the Philippine social networks, like fire in dry woods. And the little detail that Alexander didn't know? Ramon knew exactly the right people to ensure those videos reach the right places. If you are wondering, like a destroyed man, without a penny in his pocket and living on the streets, he could represent any real threat to a powerful and seemingly untouchable billionaire. So you need to keep following this story, because what is about to unfold in the next few hours will prove that sometimes the devastating weapon is not money, it is not political power, it is not social status, it is the inconvenient truth in the hands of someone who literally has absolutely nothing to lose. And Ramon Cordova, the engineer who everyone thought was broken and defeated, was about to teach a lesson that not all the money in the world could buy. Never underestimate a man who has played the background, because he knows secrets about the city that powerful prefer to keep buried. If you are enjoying this story of a desperate father facing a cruel billionaire, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because the revenge Ramon has planned meticulously for 3 years in the shadows is just beginning, and when the truth finally comes out, Alexander Chen's empire will never be the same. The video began to circulate on Philippine social networks exactly 43 minutes after Ramon was expelled from Supermart. The first post came from a Manila Watcher, an account with 280,000 followers dedicated to exposing social injustices in the city. Pharmaceutical billionaire humiliates desperate father begging for milk for sick daughter, said the caption in bottles, followed by 3 videos filmed from different angles. In 2 hours, it had 500,000 views. In 4 hours, it was in the national trending topics. But Alexander Chen didn't know any of that yet. He was comfortably sitting in the Chen Industries executive meetings room, presenting quarterly profit projections for the board, when his personal assistant came in discreetly and slid a tablet in front of him. "Lord, we need to talk. Urgent." Alexander looked annoyed at the interruption, but when his eyes focused on the screen, the expression changed. The video had been shared 12,000 times. Comments on Tagalog and English accumulated to the thousands, mostly with anger emojis. Does this man produce drugs that cost thousands and can't give a liter of milk? Look at his face. Absolute disgust. As if the beggar were garbage. My mother died because she had no money for Chen Industries medicines. Now I see what kind of person commands this company. Who is this Ramon Cordova? Does anyone know how to help you? Alexander felt something uncomfortable forming in the stomach, but quickly recomposed his control mask. "Handle that," said the assistant. "PR immediate. Say that it was misunderstanding, that we offer help, and he refused anything." What Alexander didn't know was that Ramon was 3 steps ahead. While the CEO tried to control the damage, Ramon was in a cheap internet coffee, using one of the 5 anonymous accounts he had created over the past few months. His fingers flew down the keyboard with surprising practice for someone who was supposed to live on the streets. "Update. I just got out of the hospital. My daughter Sophia worsened. Severe pneumonia. Medicine she needs? Made by Chen Industries. Price for 5 days of treatment? 8,500 pesos. My monthly salary when I had a job." The post included a blurred photo of a small child in a simple hospital bed, connected to tubes. Sophia existed, the disease was real, but the timing of that specific photo, carefully calculated. Quins and 1,000 shares in 1 hour. Chen Industries' public relations team quickly issued a statement. Alexander Chen is a well-known philanthropist that contributes millions to social causes annually. The incident on the market was a misunderstanding. The company is trying to locate Mr. Ramon Cordova to offer full medical assistance to his daughter. Ramon read the statement and smiled bitterly. They had bitten the bait perfectly. "We received a statement from Chen Industries offering help," he posted 2 hours later. "But where was this generosity when my daughter was hungry? When did I beg my knees? Charity only appears when the cameras are connected." The public response was devastating to Alexander. Furious comments flooded all Chen Industries' official pages. Company shares began to fall into the Manila Stock Exchange. But that's what happened on the 3rd day that really shook the structures. An investigative journalist named Diana Reyes by Manila Tribune published an article entitled, "The Invisible Man, The True Story of Ramon Cordova." Ramon Cordova is not just a beggar, the article started. 3 years ago, he was a senior civil engineer working on the infrastructure project of the new Manila Municipal Hospital, until he discovered something that very powerful people didn't want to be discovered. The article detailed how Ramon had found evidence of embezzlement of public funds in the hospital project, overpriced construction materials at 300%, counterfeit documents, purchased approvals. What about the center of the corruption web? Subsidiary companies linked to Chen Industries, which had received the exclusive contract to provide medical equipment to the not-yet-built hospital. When Ramon presented his discoveries to the superiors, he was immediately fired on false accusations of incompetence. His reputation was systematically destroyed. No other company would hire him. Lawyers said that processing would be professional suicide. Diana was still. The article had documents, pictures of Ramon in his former office, smiling next to colleagues, wearing a suit and engineer helmet, university certificates, professional excellence awards, and then, recent photos. The same unrecognizable man, kneeling on Supermart's cold floor. Alexander Chen read the article 3 times, feeling the blood freezing progressively. He vaguely remembered the hospital scandal 3 years ago. Your company had actually provided some strategic incentives to ensure that lucrative contract, but that was just business. Everyone did. He never imagined that the troubled engineer who had been silenced was still out, much less that he had stored evidence. How did she get this information? Alexander practically shouted to his legal team gathered in his 42nd floor glass office. Manila's panoramic view seemed to mock him through the windows. Sir, more, said Chief Lawyer Marcus Tan, passing another tablet. See that? It was an online forum where former Chen Industries employees shared anonymous stories, reports of abusive labor practices, bullying, unfair layoffs. Usually these pages had a few followers, but now, fueled by public outrage over Ramon, had 200,000 people reading each post. I worked at Chen Industries for 8 years, said a prominent post. I saw Alexander Chen humiliate publicly for the crime of asking for a salary increase after 3 years without readjustment. I saw people cry in the bathroom. I saw a pregnant woman being fired because her baby would interfere in the deadlines of the project. Alexander threw the tablet on the table. Process all. Defamation. Slander. All. Sir, Marcus chose the words carefully. That would only make the situation worse. It would seem persecution. Public opinion is violently against us now. So what do you suggest? Alexander hissed. Let me kneel and apologize to a beggar who is clearly orchestrating a defamation campaign against my company. Marcus hesitated, but then showed another document. In fact, sir, we received a letter from Ramon Cordova's lawyer this morning. Attorney? Alexander almost laughed. Which lawyer would accept to represent someone without a penny? Dr. Patricia Mendoza, specialist in human rights and cases against corporations. She is doing this to Bono. The name resonated uncomfortably. Patricia Mendoza had a reputation to destroy arrogant executives in courts. Impossible cases had gained against multinational companies. Alexander read the letter. It was concise and devastating. Ramon Cordova was suing Chen Industries for career destruction, defamation, and conspiracy to hide corruption in public works. Value of the requested damage? 50 million weights. This is ridiculous, Alexander said, but his voice lacked the previous conviction. He has no evidence. Sir, Marcus said softly. He has 3 years of documentation, and according to sources, Diana Reyes is preparing a series of 5 investigative articles. This was only the first. That night, Alexander Chen didn't sleep. For the first time in his privileged life, he felt something close to genuine fear, not just for the company or money, although actions continued to fall, but by the growing perception that it had severely underestimated that man kneeling on the floor of the market. Ramon Cordova was not a random victim. It was an opponent who had meticulously prepared. Each movement, every tear, every word was calculated. And the worst? Alexander had fallen into the trap perfectly, with his arrogance captured on high-definition video, shared millions of times, assisted by half of the Philippines. While Alexander sank on his Italian leather couch, trying to formulate a counterattack plan, Ramon was in a small apartment borrowed from a former college colleague, feeding Sophia with the milk he had finally been able to buy, donated by dozens of strangers who had seen their history. Dad, why are you smiling? Sophia asked, her still weak voice but improving. Because, my daughter, Ramon said softly, kissing her forehead. Sometimes justice takes time, but when finally it arrives, it's magnificent. He looked at the open laptop at the table, where more notifications appeared. Reporters wanting interviews, lawyers offering help, labor rights organizations offering as witnesses, and, above all, millions of ordinary, indignant people demanding that Alexander Chen and his company pay for the years of exploitation and arrogance. What no one still realized, not even journalists, not even Patricia Mendoza, was that Ramon had much more kept. The hospital documents were just the beginning. For 3 years invisible on the streets, he had observed, collected, and documented such a vast corruption network that he would make the current scandal look like an appetizer. And Alexander Chen, with his wounded pride and his expensive lawyers, was about to find that there are much worse than losing money or reputation. He was about to lose complete control of the narrative, the company, and finally, his own freedom. Because true justice, when served by someone who has lost absolutely everything and has nothing more to lose, knows no boundaries or mercy. 7 days after the incident at Supermart, Ramon woke up at 5 in the morning in a small apartment borrowed in the neighborhood of Tondo. Sofia slept quietly by her side, finally recovering from pneumonia thanks to the donations that had flooded the bank account that supporters created for him. Ironically, they had raised 340,000 pesos in a week, more than Ramon had gained in 2 years as an engineer. But money was never the goal. He opened the worn laptop and checked the notifications. Diana Reyes had published the second article in the investigative series, Chen Industries and the Maze of Corruption, as essential medicines are overpriced by 400%. The article detailed as Alexander's company manipulated public bids, created artificial scarcity of generic medicines, and maintained absurd prices in treatments for diseases that mainly affected poor populations: children's pneumonia, diabetes, hypertension. Medicines that cost cents to produce were sold for dozens of dollars. Leaked internal documents show that Chen Industries executives openly discussed strategies to maximize profits during public health crises, treating epidemics such as business opportunities, wrote Diana. Ramon knew exactly where those leaked documents came from. He had personally delivered them to Diana 3 weeks earlier, along with 20 pages of detailed analysis. 3 years on the streets were not wasted. Ramon had used each day to reconstruct his contact network, cultivate strategic relationships, and especially investigate. While everyone thought he was broken and defeated, Ramon worked silently in cheap internet cafes, public libraries, using borrowed computers. Your phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cordova, here is Marcus Tan, from Chen Industries' legal office. Mr. Chen would like to talk personally. He is willing to make a generous proposal to resolve this situation. Discreet. Ramon almost smiled. Generous proposal. Code for bribery. What kind of proposal? He asked, keeping his voice neutral. 1 million weights. Lifetime medical treatment for his daughter, and a public retraction of his accusations. We believe there were misunderstandings on both sides. 1 million. It was enough money to our encounter completely. Buy a house, return to university, give Sofia a decent life. I need to think, Ramon said. There are 48 hours. After that, Mr. Chen will take other measures. The veiled threat was clear. Ramon hung up and immediately called another number. This one, he knew well. Patricia, they just offered bribe. Across the line, Dr. Patricia Mendoza, the human rights lawyer who had accepted her case to Bono, released a dry laugh. Did you record the conversation? Every word. Perfect. This is added to the list of crimes. Bribe to obstruction of justice. Patricia was not just an ordinary lawyer. At 45, he had a devastating history of destroying arrogant corporations and courts. Daughter of rural workers who managed to study law with scholarships, she viscerally understood the struggle of people like Ramon. How is the process? Ramon asked. Better than we expected. We got witnesses, former Chen industry employees willing to testify about illegal practices, and the judge designated for the case is known for not tolerating corporate abuse. And Alexander? Desperate. The company's shares have fallen 35% since history viralized. Shareholders pressing for its resignation. 3 government investigations open on the company's business practices. Patricia paused. Ramon, he will try to destroy you in other ways. People like that don't accept to lose. As if invoked by the conversation, Alexander's next movement came that same afternoon. An article appeared on a corporate gossip blog known for publishing pays advertising. The truth about Ramon Cordova, engineer fired by professional incompetence, now seeks to extort respectable company. The text claimed that Ramon had been fired by serious errors in projects, that his accusations were personal revenge, which was manipulating public opinion. It included anonymous testimonies of alleged former colleagues describing him as problematic and liar. Ramon read the article completely, then he took the phone and called Diego Santos, his former direct supervisor on the hospital project. Diego, did you see what you published about me? Fie. Diego's voice sounded heavy. Ramon, I need to tell you something. They offered me money, a lot of money, to confirm these lies publicly. And you accepted? Tense silence. I should. My daughter enters college next year. I need the money. Diego took a deep breath. But I can't. You were the best engineer I've ever worked. And what they did to you, it was criminal. Did you keep the documents I showed you 3 years ago? All. Original plants, material reports, emails about overpricing. It's all in a pen drive hidden in my office. Ramon closed his eyes, feeling something close to genuine hope for the first time in years. Diego, do you witness in court? If you guarantee me protection for my family, yes, because I'm not the only one. There are at least 5 other engineers who know the truth and are afraid to speak. When Ramon hung up, his hands trembled slightly, not of fear, but in anticipation. The pieces were finally fitting. That night, while Sophia watched designs on the tablet donated by a sympathizer, Ramon opened an encrypted file on the laptop. Inside it, 3 years of meticulous work, original hospital project documents showing deviations, Chen Industries' internal emails discussing price handling strategies, bank records that traced the flow of bribes, recording of compromising conversations, a list of 43 potential witnesses, former employees, harmed suppliers, doctors who knew about unethical practices, and the central play that had not yet revealed to anyone, proof that Alexander Chen personally had ordered Ramon's career destruction 3 years ago, including explicit emails for human resources from other companies saying not to hire him. Ramon had obtained these evidence in a way that Alexander would never imagine, through the CEO's personal secretary that he had cruelly fired 6 months ago for inefficiency. She had kept copies of absolutely everything before leaving, waiting for the right opportunity to retaliate. That opportunity had come when he saw Ramon in the news. A new email appeared on the screen. Subject, urgent meeting, solidarity. It was from an organization of Philippine workers representing more than 50,000 people. They wanted to make a protest in front of Chen Industries headquarters. They wanted Ramon to speak. Another email, 3 national television channels asking for exclusive interview. One more, an opposition politician offering public support and promising parliamentary investigations. Alexander Chen had made a fatal strategic error. When trying to silence Ramon with arrogance and then with bribery, he had turned a disp personal in a social movement. Ramon was no longer just a man seeking justice. He had become a symbol. The next morning, Patricia called news that made Ramon's heart accelerate. We got it. The judge approved our petition for access to full financial registrations of Chen Industries for the past 5 years. They will have to deliver everything. Contracts, transfers, internal communications. They will appeal, Ramon said. Sure, but even the appeal takes time. And meanwhile, with each passing day, more people are on our side. Patricia took a significant break. Ramon, we need to talk about what happens if we really earn. We're talking about potentially destroying a company that employs thousands of people. The company doesn't have to be destroyed, Ramon answered calmly. Only cleaned. Honest employees are not to blame for their executives' crimes. That afternoon, Ramon did something no one expected. He posted a video on social networks. It was not professionally produced, just he, sitting in the small apartment, Sophia sleeping in the background. My name is Ramon Cordova. Many know me as the man who has been humiliated in the market. But I am more than that. I am an engineer, father, and someone who made the mistake of trying to do the right thing. He spoke for 15 minutes, explained corruption in the hospital project, described how systematically destroyed by exposing the truth. He detailed years living invisible as he watched the city he loved to be bleeding by unscrupulous corporations. I don't seek personal revenge, he said, looking straight at the camera. I seek justice. For me, for my daughter, and for each person in the Philippines who need to choose between buying food or medicines because companies like Chen Industries treat human lives as profit opportunities. The video ended with Ramon showing quickly, for just 3 seconds, a physical folder on the table, and I have proof of absolutely everything I said. The video went viral instantly, 2 million views in the first 6 hours. More importantly, it came exactly where Ramon had planned, in Alexander Chen's office on the 42nd floor, where the CEO watched that video 3 times in a row, feeling for the first time something he had never experienced in his privileged life, genuine fear, because Alexander finally understood what he was facing. It was not a desperate beggar. He was not a broken man looking for crumbs. It was an opponent who had spent 3 years meticulously preparing for this moment, an engineer trained to plan complex structures, now applying this expertise to dismantle a part corruption empire per piece. And that folder that Ramon had shown for 3 seconds in the video, Alexander recognized the logo on the cover. It was from the internal audit of Chen Industries that he had ordered destroyed 2 years ago. How did Ramon had a copy? While Alexander broke an expensive glass of whiskey against the wall in powerless frustration, Ramon put Sophia to sleep with a story about brave princesses facing dragons. Dad, what is justice? Sophia asked, her big and curious eyes. Ramon thought for a moment. Justice, my daughter, is when the truth finally shines so strong that no one can ignore it anymore, even if it takes years. Even if it gives it on the way. And will we have justice? Ramon kissed her forehead. We are already having, my little one. We are already having. Outside the window, Manila shone with millions of lights. Somewhere outside, Alexander Chen probably didn't sleep, trying to calculate his next movement, trying to find a way out. But there was no way out. Ramon had closed each door, blocked each escape, with the meticulous patience of those who had 3 years to plan every detail. What Alexander didn't know yet, what no one but Patricia and Diego knew, was that Ramon had a last letter kept, such a devastating revelation that it would not only destroy Alexander personally, but potentially send him to prison. And this letter would be thrown at the court table in exactly 12 days at the first official hearing of the case. 12 days. It was all that was left for Alexander Chen to live in his illusion of power and control before the whole world knew exactly what kind of man he really was. The first hearing of the process was scheduled for a Tuesday at 9 in the morning at the Manila Regional Court. Alexander Chen arrived in his armored Mercedes, surrounded by a team of 6 lawyers wearing suits that cost more than the annual salary of an average worker. Ramon arrived by bus wearing the only suit he had, donated by a sympathizer. Sophia had stayed with her wife at home, finally healthy after weeks of treatment paid for public donations. The courtroom was crowded. Reporters occupied half of the available chairs. The rest, common workers who had missed employment to witness that historical confrontation between corporate power and popular justice. Alexander examined confidence as he sat. His legal team had prepared an aggressive defense, discrediting Ramon as an incompetent engineer, questioning the authenticity of each document, turning the process into a battle of where that Ramon simply would not have the resources to support. "Everyone standing," announced the officer. Judge Carmela Rodriguez presiding. The judge came in, a 52-year-old woman known for 2 distinct traits: strict impartiality and visceral hatred by executives who thought they were above the law. Alexander did not know, but that designation was already his first defeat. Patricia Mendoza rose to her initial observations. "Your Excellence, this case is not just about a humiliated man in a market. It's about systemic corruption, deliberate career destruction, and criminal exploitation of vulnerable populations." "Object dramatic and speculative," interrupted Marcus Tan, the main lawyer of Alexander. "Deny." "Continue, Dr. Mendoza." Patricia smiled discreetly. "I have 847 pages of documentation here. Fraudulent contracts, internal emails discussing how to maximize profits during epidemics, bank records showing bribes, and witnesses, 23 of them, ready to testify under oath." Marcus's face remained impassive, but his fingers lightly tightened the pen. 23 witnesses? His investigators had identified only 12 possible. "In addition," Patricia continued, "we have engaging conversation recordings, including one 4 days ago where Chen Industries' legal office has offered 1 million pesos to my client to remove all accusations." Murmurs exploded in the room. Alexander turned sharply to Marcus, who had visibly paled. "Order." He hit the judge's hammer. "Was this recording obtained legally?" "Perfectly cool, Your Excellence. The call was made from my client's personal mobile phone, who has every right to record conversations received. The full audio is here." Patricia handed a pen drive to the court officer. Alexander felt something cold through his spine. That was obstruction of justice, documented bribery. Even if he won the civil process, he now faced potential criminal process. "I would also like to submit to the court," Patricia continued, savoring each word, "an internal audit of the 2022 Chen Industries, detailing questionable pricing practices. This audit was officially lost by the company. My client, however, obtained a confidential source copy." Marcus Tan got up quickly. "Your Excellence, these documents have been stolen. They are privately obtained property illegally. They were leaked by a whistleblower concerned with criminal practices," cut Patricia. "And according to the 2021 Complainant Protection Law, such revelations are not only legal but protected." The judge studied the documents for long minutes. The room remained in tense silence. "I recognize these documents as legitimate evidence," has finally decided. "Continue." That's when Ramon finally got up to testify. All cameras turned to him. Alexander watched him with a mixture of anger and something close to increasing fear. "Mr. Cordova," started Patricia, "please tell the court what she discovered 3 years ago in the municipal hospital project." Ramon took a deep breath. His voice was calm, clear, precisely technical. "I found that building materials were being overpriced at 340%. Concrete registered as grade A1 was actually B3, inappropriate for hospital structures. If that building were built according to fraudulent plans, it would collapse in less than 10 years. Audible gas TPS in the room. People would die." Ramon continued, his fixed eyes on Alexander. "Patients, doctors, visitors, all because someone decided that profit was worth more than human lives." "And when did you report these findings?" "I was fired in 48 hours. False accusations of incompetence were manufactured." My reputation was systematically destroyed. Ramon opened a folder. I have emails from Chen Industries' Human Resources Department to other building companies, specifically instructing them not to hire me. Patricia showed the emails in a big screen. One of them was particularly devastating. From chenuchenindustries.com to ryconstrutechphil.com. Subject, Ramon Cordova. Do not hire this man under any circumstances. It poses a significant risk to our commercial interests in the region. We can offer compensation for its cooperation on this issue. Alexander Chen, CEO. The silence in the room was deafening. Alexander felt all his eyes on him. TV cameras captured their expression of shock and growing panic. This is out of context, he shouted, getting up. I never— Lord Chen, feel, ordered the judge coldly. You will have your opportunity to testify, but the damage was done. That email, with its verifiable digital signature, was unambiguous conspiracy proof to destroy Ramon's career. Patricia was not over. I would now like to call our first witness, Diego Santos, former engineering supervisor in the hospital project. Diego entered, visibly nervous but determined. Under an oath, he confirmed every word Ramon had said. Moreover, it revealed that 2 other engineers had also noticed irregularities, but were silenced with similar threats. I received a personal call from Mr. Chen's office, Diego witnessed. They said that if I said something about the problems in the project, my daughter would never get a place at a decent university. That would ruin me as they did with Ramon. And why are you witnessing now? Patricia asked. Because I realize that men like Alexander Chen only have power when people like me are silent for fear, and because Ramon had the courage to lose everything to do the right thing, I won't be a coward anymore. Spontaneous applause exploded in the gallery. The judge hit the hammer but did not seem genuinely disapproving. The following witnesses were devastating. Former employees detailing toxic work environment. Doctors explaining how artificially inflated prices of drugs killed poor patients. An internal accountant revealing tax evasion schemes. When the time came for Alexander to testify, he was visibly shaken. His arrogant trust had completely evaporated. Mr. Chen, Patricia started, recognizes this email like yours? This was misunderstood. Is it or is it not your digital signature? Technically, yes, and you recognize that you have offered 1 million weights to Mr. Cordova to remove this process? Marcus Tan tried to intervene, but Alexander, in increasing panic, replied, it was just a legitimate attempt according to agreement? Patricia raised her voice. When someone offers money to make criminal accusations disappear, we call it bribe, not agreement. The rest of Alexander's testimony was a disaster. He contradicted his own statements multiple times, admitted knowledge of some irregularities in the hospital project, tried to justify pricing practices that any reasonable person would recognize as exploratory. When he finally came down from the witness bank, Alexander Chen was no longer the confident CEO who had entered court. He was a broken man, realizing that the world he had built on corruption and arrogance was literally crumbling live, broadcast on national network. The judge announced a 2-hour recess for deliberation. In the corridor, reporters surrounded Ramon. How do you feel? Ramon thought carefully before answering. I don't feel joy in destroying anyone, but I feel peace of knowing that the truth was finally heard. How many families have lost loved people because they didn't have money for overpriced medications? How many workers were silenced out of fear? That was never just about me. The cameras then turned to Alexander, trying to escape a side outlet. Mr. Chen, comments about the testimony? Alexander ignored them but could not ignore the crowd that had graduated outside the court. Hundreds of people, many holding pictures of lost loved ones, posters demanding justice. Corporate assassin, someone shouted. My father died because he had no money for his medicines. Security guards had to escort Alexander quickly to the car. Within Mercedes, alone finally, Alexander Chen, a man who had always had everything, who had never faced real consequences for his actions, cried for the first time since childhood, not of sadness, but of powerless anger and genuine fear of the future. Your phone exploded with notifications. Shareholders asking for its resignation. Council marking emergency meeting. 3 major canceled government contracts. Company shares in free fall. And above all, an email from the Public Prosecution Service stating that criminal investigation would be opened on possible corruption, bribery, and conspiracy. When the judge returned, her decision was quick and surgical. This court determines that Chen Industries and his CEO, Alexander Chen, are guilty of conspiracy to destroy the career of Mr. Ramon Cordova, fraud in public contracts and criminal commercial practices. Damage granted to the author, 75 million pesos. In addition, I am referring this case to the Public Prosecution Service for full criminal investigation. Ramon remained sitting, motionless. Sophia could study at any school. Your family would be safe. But more important, the truth had won. Alexander left the court escorted by security guards under boos and hateful looks of people. The empire that had taken 30 years to build was ruining in days. And all because he had been too cruel to give a liter of milk to a desperate man, too arrogant to realize that that beggar was actually a brilliant engineer, patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity to expose the hidden rot under the varnish of corporate respectability. While the city's lights began to turn on through the court windows, one thing was crystal clear. Justice can be slow, it can be painful, but when it finally comes, especially in the hands of someone who has nothing else to lose, it's absolutely devastating. 6 months after the trial, Ramon Cordova was sitting in a small office in downtown Manila, not very different from those where he worked years ago, except that he had his name at the door. Cordova Consulting in Structural Integrity and Corporate Transparency. The irony did not go unnoticed. The man who had been systematically prevented from working as an engineer was now sought by companies and governments who wanted to ensure that their projects were clean, ethical, and safe. Mr. Cordova, we have another client requesting his services, announced Maria, his assistant, the same secretary who had leaked the compromising emails of Alexander Chen and that Ramon hired immediately after the trial. Ministry of Health wants complete audit of all pharmaceutical contracts of the last 10 years. Ramon nodded, looking out the window to the city that finally recognized him not as a beggar or victim, but as the brilliant professional who always was. The 75 million weights? He had invested half a foundation that offered free legal advice to exploited workers and corporate complaints. The other half financed scholarships for needy communities' engineers. Sophia, now 6 years old and completely recovered, was studying at one of Manila's best private schools, not for status but because Ramon could finally give her the opportunities she deserved. Every morning when she left her at school she asked, "Dad, today are you going to help more people?" And the answer was always yes. Diego Santos, the supervisor who had found courage to witness, had been promoted in his company, who desperately tried to distance himself from the Chen Industries scandal. More importantly, other engineers who witnessed corruption now were encouraged to denounce, knowing that there was a precedent for real protection. Journalist Diana Reyes won the National Investigative Journalism Award for her series of 5 articles exposing not only Alexander Chen, but a whole network of corporate corruption in the Philippines. His last article had been particularly devastating, detailing how 23 other executives had used tactics similar to Chen to silence complainants. Patricia Mendoza, the lawyer who had accepted the case when Ramon had nothing, now led a specialized office in cases against abusive corporations. His schedule was full for 2 years. Ramon opened the floodgates, she said in a recent interview. It has shown that David can defeat Goliath when he has the truth as a weapon. As for Alexander Chen, its fall was as fast as its arrogance had been high. Criminal investigations revealed decades of illegal practices, bribery of civil servants, bid manipulation, mass evasion on a massive scale. Alexander was sentenced to 15 years in prison for multiple crimes of corruption, fraud, and conspiracy. Chen Industries sold in judicial settlement. Their assets were divided between creditors and a compensation fund for victims, families who had lost loved ones due to inaccessible drugs or denied treatments. The headquarters building, the 42nd floor with panoramic view where Alexander used to look at Manila as his personal empire, now sheltered a public health clinic offering free treatments. Ramon visited Alexander once in prison, not for cruelty or to enjoy his defeat, but because he needed to close that chapter completely. Alexander was almost unrecognizable. The impeccable Italian suit man now wore faded orange uniform, grouting hair, deep dark circles. 3 years of absolute privilege had been replaced by 3 years of absolute consequences. "Why did you come?" Alexander asked, his voice hoarse and without the characteristic arrogance. "To tell you I don't hate you," Ramon answered calmly. "Hate would have consumed me. I would have turned me into you." Alexander looked down, unable to sustain his gaze. "I could have given that liter of milk. It would cost less than my imported water." "Yes, I could, but then I would never have had the motivation to expose everything you did. How many other families you prefer did you use your greed? How many people died because their medicines were inaccessible?" Ramon leaned lightly forward. "You didn't destroy me in that market, Alexander. You finally showed me my purpose." "Revenge?" Alexander asked bitterly. "Justice," Ramon corrected. "There is a difference. Revenge would be to humiliate you, make you suffer for the pleasure of suffering. Justice is to ensure that you never harm anyone, and that the system that allowed your crimes to be renovated. When Ramon left prison that afternoon, he felt something he had not experienced for years. Genuine peace. Not the peace of victory over an enemy, but the peace of knowing that he had turned his pain into something greater than himself. That night during family dinner, his wife Clara, who had worked 3 shifts to keep them alive for the worst moments, held your hand and said, "I'm proud not because you made money or destroyed who hurt you. I'm proud because you never let the cruelty of others turn you into something cruel." Sophia interrupted, mouth full of rice. "Dad, at school today the teacher told her story. Everyone was quiet. Then they hugged me and said, 'You are a hero.'" Ramon smiled, his damp eyes. "I'm not a hero, my daughter. I'm just someone who refused to accept what injustice is normal. But you fought against powerful people. And do you know what I learned?" Ramon pulled Sophia to his lap. "Real power doesn't come from money or important position. It comes from doing the right thing even when it's hard, even when you're alone, even when it seems impossible." The history of Ramon and Alexander became a case study at business and law universities across the country, not just about corporate corruption, but about something more fundamental, the illusion that wealth and social position make someone untouchable. An academic article published 6 months after the trial concluded, "The Cordova versus Chen Industries case represents an inflection point in Philippine corporate accountability. It demonstrates that power systems, however entrenched they seem, are vulnerable when confronted with documented truth and unshakable determination." But for Ramon, it was never about creating legal precedent or becoming a symbol. It was always about something very simple: to ensure that Sophia grew in a world where people could not be discarded like garbage simply because they are poor or inconvenient. A year after the trial, Ramon was invited to lecture at a conference on engineering ethics. The room was crowded with hundreds of students and professionals. "You ask me how I survived 3 years on the streets," he started, his calm voice but loaded with the contained emotion. "The truth? I didn't survive unharmed. I lost parts of me that will never come back. My daughter has gone hungry. My wife worked to exhaustion. These are real damage that no judicial process can completely undo." The room remained in absolute silence. "But do you know what I didn't lose? My integrity, my ability to look in the mirror, my knowledge that when I was offered the choice between comfortable and dangerous truth, I chose truth." He paused, looking at the young faces in the audience. "Many of you will face this choice. Summer corruption, fraud, practices that put lives at risk. Superior will say that thus work, that cannot change the system, that need to think about the family." Ramon took a deep breath. "And they will be right about one thing. Reporting has cost. It can cost your job, your reputation, your financial security. I paid all these costs." He let the words hover in the air before continuing. "But silence also has cost. Cost paid in lives lost by inaccessible medications, buildings that collapse cheap materials, families destroyed by corporate greed. The difference is that the cost of silence is paid by people who did not choose. People like my daughter Sophia, who almost died because a billionaire decided that profit was worth more than life." Applause echoed through the room, but Ramon lifted his hand kindly. "Don't applaud me. Applaud Diego Santos, who risked everything to witness. They applaud Patricia Mendoza, who worked for free because she believed in justice. They applaud each anonymous person who shared my story, who donated a weight, who refused to accept that cruelty is normal." When Ramon came down from stage, a young engineer approached, tears in his eyes. "Mr. Cordova, I work in a company where I'm seeing irregularities in bridge project. I'm afraid to report, but after listening to you, I'll do the right thing." Ramon held his hands. "You won't be alone. Write down my number. My consultancy offers protection and advisory to complainants." That's exactly why I found the company. Because in the end, this was the real victory. No bank account in or the arrest of Alexander. It was every person who found courage to do the right thing. It was each corrupt system being exposed. It was each arrogant executive realizing that consequences exist, yes, even for the rich and powerful. That night, while putting Sophia to sleep, she asked Ramon's question, "Never forget. Dad, would you go back in time and change anything? Not to have to starve, not to have been expelled from the market?" Ramon thought carefully before answering. "You know, my daughter, for a long time I thought yes. But today, looking at everything we can change, all the people we help, all the good that came from this pain," he kissed his forehead, "it would not change anything. Because sometimes we need to go through hell to learn that we have the strength to get out of it and still help others escape as well. So pain can become something good. Pain can become purpose, Sophia. It can become compassion. It can become change, but only if you don't let it turn you into something bitter and cruel." And that was the lesson Ramon most wanted the world to learn. Not about spectacular revenge or impossible victories, but about something more fundamental, that our humanity is not defined by what happens to us but how we choose to answer. Alexander Chen chose arrogance, exploitation, and cruelty. Ramon Cordova chose dignity, truth, and justice. One ended in prison alone, his ruined empire. The other ended up with a family, building a legacy of integrity that would inspire generations. The best revenge, after all, was never destroying who harmed you. It was to build something so significant, so positive, so powerful, that they make their cruelty look exactly what it has always been: small, petty, and completely forgettable. And when Sophia asked one last time, almost sleeping, "Dad, you're happy now?" Ramon could answer with absolute honesty, "Yes, my daughter, not despite everything we have been through, but because of that. Because I learned that real happiness never comes from never falling, but from getting up and helping others get up too." Outside, Manila slept under millions of lights. Somewhere in that huge city, another honest worker probably faced injustice. Another powerful person probably abused his privilege. Another David was preparing to face his Goliath. But now, thanks to Ramon Cordova, they knew that victory was possible. What justice, though slow and painful, still existed. How true, when defended with unshakable courage, eventually prevails. And that, in the end, was the only revenge that really mattered, turning your pain into a lighthouse of hope for everyone who would come later. If this story of overcoming justice and dignity has touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because as long as there are people willing to fight for what is right, no matter how powerful their opponents, hope never dies. And sometimes, all we need to change the world is the courage not to accept that cruelty is normal.